If you're booking an Oceania cruise in 2026, at some point you've hit the same wall we did. Our class, Regatta, Insignia, Nautica, Sirena, are small, intimate, they can go everywhere. Or Vista or Allura. They're bigger, newer, fancier, with more to eat and more to do. We've sailed both, and the answer isn't get the bigger ship. The answer is it depends on who you are as a traveler. And today we're going to make sure you know exactly which one that is. For those of you who may not have seen our content, I am Leah and this is Doug, and we love to travel. We primarily do cruises, but we do other travel as well. Our channel is all about just being radically honest of our experiences. We do not have any sponsors. We do not have any paywalls. We are just here to provide good information to you so you can make choices on your travel. So with that said, what this is not today is a beauty contest for Oceania Fleet. The fleet is fabulous, and they're just different levels of fabulous in the experience. Also, you probably are already typing in the comments, where's the Marina and the Riviera? They kind of sit squarely in the middle of both of these. But to be honest, and we'll never provide feedback on a ship we have not recently been on, and it's been
2016 on the Riviera.
10 years. So we don't have anything recent or relevant, so we're not going to be sharing that. And besides, if you look at the R class and the Allura class, those are the kind of two big personalities of Oceania right now. So we felt that these would be most relevant, and we've been on both of them recently.
Yeah.
So our methodology.
So first we're going to talk about the hardware, the physical ship, and then the table, the food, the dining, the culinary experience. Next up would be livability. So your cabin, your bathroom, the day-to-day comforts of the ship. Finally, the vibe, the feeling, the culture, the social energy of the ship.
Yeah. And if you stick around to the end, we'll give you our verdict as to what we found.
Yeah, so hang on. So the cruise industry has a metric to determine how much space each passenger has on the ship. What you do is you take the gross tonnage of the ship and you divide it by the number of passengers. What was surprising to me was the Allura class actually has more space per passenger, even though it has almost double the number of passengers.
The pool deck tells the story in about 30 seconds. On Regatta, the pool is cozy. One main pool, and you know your neighbors by name before lunch on day one. On Vista and Allura, the pool deck opens up. More hot tubs, more sun loungers, more breathing room on sea days. If you've ever had to stake out a chair at 7 a.m. on a Regatta sea day, and we have, Vista's deck is going to feel like a revelation.
So the Terrace Cafe, where most of us start our mornings, size becomes very practical here. On Regatta, it's functional, tight layout, limited stations, but the quality is there. On Vista, it's fundamentally different floor plan. More stations, better traffic flow, and on sea days, you won't be fighting anyone for your favorite dish.
So another great comparison point is the spa terrace. If you have access to this area of the ship, here's what it looked like on Regatta. And here is what they have done to it on Vista. It's a lot roomier. There's a lot more chairs. They're super comfortable, and it is a great place to spend an afternoon.
So up top on the sports deck, here is the Regatta, and here's the Vista. The biggest difference is the pickleball court on the Vista and Allura.
So the bottom line on hardware. Vista has more space, amenity count, and modern infrastructure. More per passenger space, a better pool setup, more seating throughout the seat, actually considerably more seating throughout the ship.
But here's the thing, the R-Class's smaller footprint is actually a feature for certain travelers. It's the reason you run into the same 100 people every afternoon, and I start to feel like you belong somewhere. That intimacy is real value. Just know what you're choosing.
Now we get to what Oceania does better than almost anyone in premium cruising, and that is food. They call themselves the finest cuisine at sea, but we know there's argument about that. But here's something important to understand before we start comparing. The food philosophy on both fleets is the same. The difference is the options, and the options gap between the R class and the Vista, they're real and significant.
The grand dining room on Vista is genuinely beautiful. High ceilings, bright, airy. Dinners here feel like a special occasion just from the room itself. We dressed up a little bit just to match the energy. Now step into the Regatta dining room. Lower ceilings, darker, warm colors, more European, more intimate. Some guests find it elegant and cozy. Others, after 2 weeks, start to feel the walls. The food on both, comparable. The setting is genuine personal preference, and it's worth knowing your preferences before you book.
So here's the sharpest edge in the dining comparison, because on any Oceania ship, you get Toscana and you get Polo Grill. But on Vista, like, it's a whole nother level of restaurant. So Jacques is back in its regular normal form. I had bouillabaisse there and it was absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, I had the lobster thermidor and that was delicious also.
I think we had lobster like 4 or 5 times this entire cruise.
We had
it was
a lot
amazing.
of lobster.
Red ginger is a favorite of everyone's, and it's one of the hardest to get the early reservation in, by the way, because it's so popular. And my problem is we only had 1 reservation available, and I can't not order the miso cod.
Yeah, and I can't not order the red chicken curry. And my favorite appetizer is also in this restaurant, and those pork rolls. Those were awesome.
You also have the addition of Aquamar, which is a fabulous kind of healthy food focus. You can get fruits and juices, and they had an amazing kind of raspberry power bowl that I had in the morning. And I've deconstructed their Cancun power bowl. I make that one at home.
Yeah,
it's a favorite. It's a favorite.
Yeah, and I didn't care for the breakfast as much as Leah did, but I really liked several different lunch options. One was a crispy chicken sandwich. There was a wrap that I had. It was really good. I enjoyed having lunch in the Aquamar kitchen.
So lots of food options on the newer ships. So on Regatta, you do have the 2. You do have Polo Grill and Toscana, and they're obviously fabulous. But if you're a foodie, this is really something to think about when you're making a choice.
So one of the biggest differences between the Vista-Class and our class is baristas. Baristas is much larger on the Vista-Class, and it has a great bakery with lots of tasty treats. Some savory items in the afternoon. There's quiche in the afternoon. If you compare that to the baristas on the Regatta, it's just one small section of maybe 4 rows of muffins and croissants and things like that. So big difference.
Yeah. I think the other, from a food perspective, is the culinary center. I know those were on Marina and Riviera too, but it's really well done on the newer ships as well. The classes during our sailing cost $129. They had a couple of them on like all the sea days. So you can book those in advance. And they're very popular. But again, if you want that sort of hands-on foodie experience and access to that, you're going to want to consider one of the newer ships. Another addition is the Founders Bar, which kind of takes cocktails to the next level. Not only did they have just a fun menu, but they also had mixology classes, and those were pretty well attended, very popular.
One thing that surprised us on the ship was the tea service. It was very similar on both ships. Lots of different treats, scones, clotted cream. If you like tea, you're going to like the Vista and the R class.
So let's go back to the Terrace Cafe for just a minute and talk about the quality and layout of the food versus just the hardware. Both are very similar experiences, but I will say that because the area is so much bigger on Vista, that you have more variety. So there might be, 2 or 3 cold salad offerings on Regatta. Well, there's probably 5 or 6 on Vista. So if you really like a broader variety, to us, the food quality was pretty similar in the buffet. And to be honest, they both suffered from what I call dry meat syndrome, where it's been sitting under the lamp for too long, or it's just cooked in a way that the meat isn't very tender. We had that issue on both, but it wasn't every single day. So just being honest about that. So when you look at the all up food angle of the newer ships versus the older ships, you've really got a massive advantage with the newer ships, with the additional restaurants, the up-leveled ingredients. And I do want to give you an example of what I would say is up-level sourcing of ingredients. What you're looking at now was the lobster dinner we were served in the main dining room on Regatta. This tail was laid on here for presentation. The meat itself was formed into these circles. It just was Honestly, it was almost inedible. The meat was really tough. It was one of the worst meals we had, and we were surprised by that. Over here is now the lobster dinner on Vista. It was real lobster. It was fantastic and tasty, just like it should be. So I do feel like there is a difference between where they're sourcing ingredients for these different ships. The culinary center, the addition of the bakery, the mixology classes. I mean, our class is comfortable, but if you want that elevated foodie level experience, you might want to consider one of the newer ships, or it's something to take into consideration when you're making your choice.
Livability is where the comparisons get personal, because you can have a beautiful dining room, a gorgeous pool area, and still come home every night to a space that either restores you or frustrates you.
At the veranda level, which is the most common room on the ships, Vista's staterooms are noticeably larger. The layout's more modern, the storage is more thoughtful, there's more floor to walk on. Our class veranda cabins are more compact, but coming from a Vista cabin, you'll feel the difference immediately. Okay, so the biggest complaint that we hear about the older R-class ships are how small the bathrooms are in a regular veranda room, and they are small.
Yeah.
Very small. They're oddly shaped, as you can see from the floor plan we're showing you here. There are, if you have mobility issues, if you're tall, that can be a deal breaker for you. So it's something that you need to think about.
Yeah, specifically people talk about the shower and how, the bathroom all up is small, but the shower is smaller than most cruise ship bathroom or showers. But here's my thing. I can shower in about 5 minutes, so 5 minutes per day to be in a small space for a shower is not a real big deal to me, anyway.
Yeah. So just something to think about.
So the fitness centers on both ships were functional. The one on the Vista was larger, and the machines were obviously newer, but we were able to get a good workout on both. Now, the one thing that Leah went to was the classes. I didn't really attend too many of the classes.
Yeah, so they both offered cycling, Pilates, yoga, HIIT classes, pretty regularly. The schedules would change based on whether you were in port or not. I think my biggest frustration is that the classroom on the Vista, which is a separate classroom, is very small. You can get about 6 people in there, maybe 7 for like a yoga or Pilates class. But the Regatta, because it's an open space with just a curtain, you could get 10 or more people in for a class. So that was a surprise. And everyone was pretty vocal about it. I'm not sure what they can do about it. But anyway, if that's important to you, that is also a consideration.
So as far as the internet goes, both ships were pretty similar. I noticed that on the Vista that on a port day, there was some speeds that were decent speeds, maybe 12 megabyte down. But on the Regatta, I got 3 no matter what. If there was a port day, a sea day, it was about the same. Now on Vista, the speeds were on a sea day were still about 3 meg down. So, honestly, I think they have Starlink subscriptions, obviously, but they have purchased a subscription that is not near big enough for the capacity of the ships.
So bottom line, if you are just doing email or, just easy stuff, it's probably just fine for you. If you are going to be on the ship and you have to do work, you have to do a Zoom call or you have to do anything with video, it's probably going to be a frustration factor for you. So just set your expectations accordingly because they're pretty similar.
Yeah.
So the kind of livability all up, if the room space is important, if that bathroom is a big deal, the other fitness center, internet, those are all kind of equal in our mind. But if those other things are important, those are factors when you're making your choice of ship.
Yeah. One positive for the smaller ship was it's a lot easier to get around. You can walk from one end of the ship, in about half the time. There's a lot less stairs because there's less decks. So, I enjoyed both ships. But
things to think about when you're making your choice.
Yep. So now for the vibe on both Horizons and Martinis. Horizons, I thought the vibe was very similar. It's kind of like a living room. We went up there to get out of the way from the room steward. We did some work. A lot of people were up there in the evenings enjoying the music. On Martinis, that was quite a bit different between the Regatta and the Vista, in my opinion. The Regatta was much more intimate. It seemed like the piano player that was there was more of the show, as opposed to the piano player on the Vista seemed more like background music. Now, this was a part of a world cruise, so there was a lot of groups of people that knew each other, and some of them, there was like a table of maybe, I think it was a
15,
different group, but
16
15,
people
20
every day.
people would be, in one area, and they kind of dominated the hallway in the Martinis lounge. But the vibe, I enjoyed the vibe on the Regatta more than the Vista for Martini's bar.
Yeah. Another area of comparison is the library, because they are quite different ship to ship. The Regatta has this beautiful, as a fireplace and the ceiling, and it's just all gorgeous. Same, to me, kind of same selection of books. I mean, they were both wonderful, great places to relax. On the Vista, it's like 3 separate rooms, maybe 4 separate rooms, and each one was kind of like its own little living room. So it was very compartmentalized versus the way that Regatta kind of split things up, is they would have a couple chairs over here and a couple chairs here and a big couch, and so it was just it was done a little differently. I think the polish of the Vista and it being right outside baristas made that a little more of a favorite for me, because I could find like a leather cushy chair and curl up and read a book. That was just 2 cents. If library is important to you, they're both good. They're just a little bit different vibe.
Yeah. There are a couple spaces that the Vista has that the Regatta does not. One would be the concierge lounge. We did have access to this, and I went there to get coffee pretty much every morning. There's also an executive lounge, which we didn't have access to, so I really can't speak much to that, but I hear it's really nice.
Yeah, so if having access to an area like that is important to you, and but it's just out of consideration, something to consider with one of the newer ships versus the older, since they don't exist. Another space that very much about vibe is the artist loft. Really, really nicely done. They have an onboard artist classes that you can sign up for. That while they may have sprinkled some activities on Regatta that were art, in this case, you've got like a dedicated room that's wholly for that, and a lot of different media and stuff that they were doing. So it was really
and they also on the Vista-Class have the Links Center. So they have iPads set up in there. If you want to take on-demand courses, you can do that. You can even take the iPad to your room if you want to. And they also have a regular classroom for live classes. I did the videography on your iPhone class, and it was great. I learned quite a few things from that class. So it's a nice area, and they also have tech support guys in there too if you're having trouble with your internet.
Because who isn't having trouble with their internet on ships these days, right?
Yeah.
One last vibe element that I think is important to cruisers, and that's, can you find a space where you can relax, read a book, do some work, whatever it is that you need to do. And on Vista, it just felt like, even though we were at capacity on Regatta too, but on Vista, it felt like we were always able to find that space or place depending on what we were trying to do. Sometimes it was the coffee shop and baristas. Sometimes it was Horizons. So sometimes it was a closed bar we might go sit in if we wanted absolute silence. So Vista really, I think, delivers on that space per person, being more open. So if we look at kind of where we land on the vibe, we think of Vista as like a grand hotel. I mean, she's polished, she's spacious, kind of sparkly and new, right? And lots of room for everybody.
Yeah, and the Regatta felt more like a country club. So my personal experience was, I think I met a lot more people and had more face-to-face conversations with people you ran into on the Regatta, because it was a smaller ship and you saw the same people more often, maybe. That's why. But I think I really enjoyed that part of the ship, was the social aspect.
Yeah. So which ship should you choose? We think we've given you a little bit to think about here, but we've netted it down to 3 points for each style.
So choose the R class if you want to dock right in the center of town, if you care about a destination-focused itinerary, or you prefer a club atmosphere where the bartender knows your drink by day 2, your room attendant has your habits figured out by day 3, you don't mind a small bathroom in exchange for a better itinerary. The trade-off is real, the bathroom is small, but you're not spending your whole vacation in the bathroom.
Good point. But you should choose one of the newer ships if one, cabin comfort, modern bathrooms are non-negotiable. If you have mobility considerations where that's a problem, the bathroom situation is going to genuinely bother you, don't book the R class or book a suite on the R class. Otherwise, Vista's the right call. 2, you are a foodie with a capital F. You want the bakery, the mixology, Jacques, Red Ginger, Culinary Center. Vista is the better culinary ship. It just does. Yep. All right. And 3, you prefer the energy of a grand hotel over a country inn. If you want more to explore, more spaces to discover, and more programming every evening, you're probably going to feel a little bit better on the Vista.
All right. So here's the truth. We have kind of a soft spot for the R class. Yeah, it's probably irrational, but only 680 people. It's just fun.
But we'd be lying if we didn't tell you we weren't impressed with the newer ships. There's just a broader activities, as we've talked about. In full disclosure, we've actually booked a cruise on Sonata when she comes out next summer to be able to look at what is that experience and differentiation between what they've done with Vista and Allura. So we're very excited about that. But either way, whatever you choose, you're going to eat well.
Yes, that's
that.
For sure.
And hopefully this has been helpful to you. We like to kind of compare the finer points so that you can make the right decision for you. If we have been helpful, we would appreciate a subscription and notification. We're pretty small and you won't see our stuff otherwise. So
doesn't cost you anything.
All right, bon voyage.